What's up, youth ministry friends? Wow, living at the end of a week that was totally unprecedented. So, for the last few days, we have been working tirelessly with our community youth ministry booster and youth ministers like you to figure out how to make heads or tails of what this next season of ministry and life will look like for a lot of us. I have been so encouraged and so excited to see the ways in which so many youth pastors have been innovating and creating through crisis. So, this presentation is just some notes that we've accumulated and assembled and aggregated across a lot of Facebook posts, conversations, Zoom calls, and some of our own research, and what we think might be a virtual strategy for youth ministry in the coming days. So we are living on the edge of an unprecedented global event. And all of the questions and science and statistics aside, whatever we're living into now in the middle of March 2020 seems like it's going to be around for a few weeks, a few months, or maybe even longer. So for the ways in which we think about ministry and gathering in church, and specifically youth ministry, gathering without the old access to a youth room or church house is directly impacted in the ways in which this global pandemic event is affecting us, and the ways in which we think about health, gathering, and connection. So this creates an opportunity for creativity. I think for a lot of youth ministers in the last few years, they might say things like, I don't feel very creative, but in the last few days have found ways to be creative, which is simply to solve problems, taking the things you know that are important, along with new tools that we can jam together to figure out how to get the important stuff done through new means, new channels, and with new tools. So the most important thing that we can say in the beginning is to evaluate what matters most. If you didn't have all the things you used to have, what would you still fight to get done? And so in the conversations we've had with youth ministers, this breaks down into a lot of the conversations about what relates to the functions, values, and strategies of our youth ministry. So there's a lot of things you already know how to do. It's beginning to evaluate the ways in which we can get the most important stuff done. And so we are living on the edge of a virtual youth ministry. That is to say, we are going to assimilate and approximate the best effects that we can through the new tools that we have in front of us. So we are doing new tools to face down our current barriers for what it means to do youth ministry really, really well. And so some of these new tools do require practice. And so I think off the top, the things that I would share with you is that you're going to have to learn how to use some things that you didn't know how to do before. But this does not mean that you are not equipped to lead and pastor through this crisis, to care for your students and their families in this season. We're just going to do some new tool learning and find the ways of best fit to accomplish the things that matter the most. So give yourself a chance to practice some of these new tools and work with us and collaborate, and we find new ways maybe to push ourselves and push the ways in which we do the things that matter most with some of these new tools. We're going to make the move. So, on a philosophical or strategic level, we have new tools, and sometimes new tools make us rethink old processes. So, one of the things that we want to challenge every youth minister to think about is moving from maybe that once or twice a week, weekly gathering, to seeing the ways in which we minister week to week. We've seen this pop up in a lot of places. Already some amazing youth ministry leaders and their teams have been beginning to construct new liturgies for the ways in which their student ministries are gathering. So maybe sermons show up on a Saturday night, and then small groups meet on a Sunday, and maybe there's space made for community on a Tuesday or a Thursday or a Friday morning even. I think a lot of the things that we used to do in youth ministry on a 90-minute session of a Sunday night or a midweek gathering on a Wednesday were out of the force of habit, or because that's the ways in which we were taught to do them. In this new space, we can really begin to imagine the ways in which we gather across the surface of a week, as opposed to just trying to jam everything in one place. I'm personally excited about the ways in which this creates some new opportunities for purposing some of the things that we do to make some more things more purposeful than they've ever been. So instead of kind of getting this residue or resonance of, well, on Wednesdays we have to do this, and this, we don't always have time to do small groups and games and worship and teaching and fun activities and fellowship and meals. But now we can begin to imagine the ways in which all those things that mattered can be scattered and sorted over the course of the week, which feels in a lot of ways more communal than 90 minutes once a week on a Sunday. I'm personally excited about it. I'm excited to see what y'all come up with as well. So week-long versus weekly, I have seen amazing youth ministries, not only here, but in other places, but wanted to share with some of my friends what they're doing from Sunday to Saturday or Sunday to Friday in their student ministries, the ways in which they're using these tools appropriately and in their context to make the sense of how they're going to move into a pastoring model versus a programmatic model. I think for so many of us, we just think about what can we get ready before next Sunday or Wednesday, and in these opportunities, the reach, the connection to our students is much closer. There is no barrier to call, to message, to Zoom, to hang out, or to share updates of what's going on. And so I'm really excited to see the ways in which our philosophy of pastoral ministry in student ministry really can begin to change over the next few weeks, days, and months. So functions, what matters most in your ministry? I think for a lot of folks, this last week or so has been a rush to figure out, what are we going to do? And so the question I would ask you before what are you going to do or how you're going to do it is, what actually matters most? In the lives of your students, time with you, what are the things, the functions that really matter? And then we'll figure out how to get those things done in a virtual youth ministry environment. So we'll begin to think through some of those major elements, such as messaging. How are you going to let people know what's going on in your ministry? It's really easy just to say, I'll see you next week and get you the updates before next Sunday's meeting, or before the next time we hang out on Wednesday, I'll print off some kind of handout or parent card to let you know. Never before has there been a more important time to have an email list or to have a text list or a really strong and recurring social media presence. People are looking to hear from you. And I think in this season especially, we've got to think about engagement, not just what we're saying, but how often and how well we're saying it. Whatever you're doing right now, double what you were already doing. If you were putting out a couple calls a week, maybe think about a call a day. If you were sending out text messages weekly, think about sending out text messages a couple times a week. If you were doing the monthly email plan, it's now time to do emails weekly or every other week. If you were a social media poster on Thursdays or Wednesday nights only, begin to think about the ways in which you're posting 3 to 4 times a week. Your students need to hear from you. Your students need to hear from you, and your parents want to know what's going on. So think first and foremost, how are people going to find out what we're doing before you even begin to imagine the reality of the ways in which you're going to do some of the other things that we'll talk about in this time. Second, preaching. I think for a lot of us, this is one of the most critical functions of what we do in ministry. It's how we teach, it's how we share, it's how we communicate. And for so many of us, preparing a Sunday or Wednesday sermon was a vital part, a core role of what our calling of student pastor, youth minister meant. And I think for so many of us, we're beginning to rethink the ways in which that 15 to 25-minute message is so much more than just a chance to stand on stage with a microphone and preach to a room full of students. And so the first go-to that I would give you is to get some word to go. Make it a weekly habit. So begin to think through the ways in which you communicate with your students from stage through a webcam, just like this, sharing in a way that's meaningful, practical, personal, but probably shorter and more frequently. I think for a lot of folks, we load up the sermon with 3 magnificent points and some really critical application that we're going to share over the course of 22 to 26 minutes, and it's going to be awesome and perfect. But I'll tell you that in this season, your students would rather hear more from you more often in shorter amounts. Think about the ways in which you consume a lot of media online. It's shorter, it's 10 minutes or less in a lot of places, and also it's daily touch, right? Like, how many times do you pick up your phone a day to check the scroll, to watch a video, to absorb a blog post or podcast? I think it would be a lot better in this season not to just think about the ways in which we're going to preach or teach on a YouTube, Instagram, or Facebook, but the ways in which we're going to connect at multiple points over the course of a week. Now, you don't have to dream up a whole new thing. You can just simply take the things you were going to say and say them in smaller bursts across a week. So if you have a 3-point sermon that you either just preached on Sunday or going to preach next week, find ways to take each one of those points and deliver them in a 2 to 4 minute version instead of just the 24-minute version. Again, we're pushing for engagement in this season. There's some great tools to do this. There's some live options to intentionally deliver. So whether you're thinking about Facebook Live, Instagram Live, YouTube Live, there's lots of free platforms and tools that your students are already engaged in and involved with for you to reach both them and their parents and families. A couple of quick pro tips that I would give you is to intentionally deliver. Talk to the mic like you're talking to them. I think for a lot of times for folks that have live streamed before, it was simply a live capture of what was happening in the room. But the room has changed. The room has emptied out, and we're now making meaningful connection right through the lens of the camera and not just documenting what happened in the room, which is why I think, as weird as it is to say and why I'm trying to practice it as best I can on this video, you need to offer direct eye contact to those that you're messaging with. Don't look around or avoid the camera. We get it. We're living in a new reality, and I want to talk right to you. The last thing I would say is that if you're on some of these programs and platforms of Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, is ask for engagement. We'll talk about some different tools and mediums and the ways in which we're connecting with people, but don't pretend like you're not out there in the stream, in the live reality, asking for feedback, asking for comments, thumbs ups, hearts, emojis for the ways in which you're engaging with your students. And then finally, not related to the actual happening of your live call, but everything around it, is to promote, schedule, and promote. People need to know ahead of time when it's happening, right before it happens, and after that it did happen. You will probably spend as much time promoting what you were going to say as you spent time preparing what you were actually going to say. One post won't count. If you're going to share something, they need to hear about it 3 times before you said it, right before you say it, and 3 times after you said it. This is the new cultural currency that we're living in when it comes to communicating, is knowing when we're about to hear from you as often as the times that we're going to hear from you. So those are some live options for you. There are some pre-recorded options, and I think these are some really great ones to explore, especially if you're feeling the pressure to perform under the camera. And so for a lot of folks that preach to the room naturally, organically, turning the camera on can pull some things out of them that they're not always comfortable with. And so I think a pre-recorded option is a really helpful option, especially if you're worried about the technical side of things or even the bandwidth of the church internet in which you are going to broadcast, or your home internet that's always seemed to flake out on you. So these are options. Either a YouTube premiere or a scheduled Facebook Live will allow you to take pre-recorded content that you can edit and produce. Maybe you cut it down, trim off some edges, add some music underneath, or maybe get a second take on the story you wanted to tell. Which will increase your quality and give you less stress about the performance of trying to be live and juggle things and have technical difficulties. This is great because you can put the thing together before it happens, and then while it's happening, comment, encourage, and share about it. It also helps you feel really confident in promoting the video as an event. I think for a lot of folks, we get a little nervous or shy to talk about what we're about to do when we're doing it live. But if the video is already done and in the can, as people say, you can promote it as an event and have the premiere or watch party of it together. And then this time you can comment with your folks in real time. Worship. What do we do about worship? There's a lot of questions related to this, and we've been writing back and forth in our community at Youth Ministry Booster about what to do with this. This is going to have to be a little bit of a different take. There are some things regarding worship when it comes to licensing, and then also coordinating efforts, whether it's playing music with some kind of lag or delay. There's some real questions and issues related to this. But the thing that I would start with and encourage every youth minister is to think about the ways in which worship over the course of a week can be collaborative. Whether you're using Spotify or YouTube playlists or Apple Music, there's a lot of great opportunities to collaborate with your students and allow them to song select, song choose, and collaborate on playlists together to express themselves, and then also to have a resource for them to worship along with at home. There's great music that's already protected and guided under all the licensing issues that you don't have to worry about having in a live video or pre-recorded stream that might get banned or cut or muted. So for you, this is a great way to take the resources, again, that your students are already using and make it a collaborative effort to hear from them. This is not just the age to be content delivering, but content curating and collaborating. I think the first thought we always think in ministry is, what do I have to give them? Create opportunities for them to give back and share as well. You'll be surprised who does, and you'll be surprised with the results as well. Another great thing is to connect it with your messages and post. If you created a collaborative playlist, mention it in the time that you're preaching and teaching, and share some of the song titles that folks are sharing as a part of your message or sermon series. It's a great way for your students to add value to what you're saying and insight for how they're feeling about things. The next question, and one of the most critical, is small groups. In an age filled with fear and anxiety, how can we have meaningful connection when we can't get together in the same room, in the same class, or the same church house? And I think for us, this really is the question that's most important to answer. And I've seen so many youth pastors rise to the call to answer it. We need to figure out a way to construct virtual youth rooms, to have face-to-face meetups, to up engagement for our students. One of the things that's nice about an Instagram Live, Facebook Live, YouTube Live is the way in which we can reach a lot of people, but one of the things that it misses is that meaningful, valuable engagement. In the same thought process of having a collaborative playlist, we want to hear from our students, and we want to equip our leaders to share with our students. There's some great free apps to utilize: Google Hangouts, FaceTime, and then there's even a free plan on Zoom. And we have some different videos and resources that share about all of those things. And so one of the things that I would share is you need to have a strategy that's manageable for your ministry to have the small group connectivity that you've come to treasure and value. Small groups are as essential as they ever were, and maybe even a little bit more in the time that we live in. So there's some things that are great about all of these. We love Zoom at Youth Ministry Booster. It's what we use for our masterminds on a weekly, if not daily basis. It's a great way for us to gather and scatter through some cool options like breakout rooms, but do not underestimate the importance of video conferencing for your youth ministry. It may be smaller than you're used to, or it may surprise you and be larger than you're used to. Our students are not afraid to hang out on a video call with their friends. Your young men and young women are excited to just see each other's faces, and having great scheduled times with you or with their small group leader are of importance, of essence in this season that we're living in. One of the things that we love about this is, unlike the big live call where you're trying to reach lots and loads of people, everybody on a Google Hangout, FaceTime, or Zoom call has a lessened expectation for production and presentation. They just want to hear from you. They just want to hang out. There's no worry for countdown timers or slick camera shots, or really even an over concern for how produced it's all put together. They just want to have meaningful face-to-face conversation and a chance for them to share with you. Ironically, this is the most social of all the social media things that we've shared. There's some great guidelines and protocols that are in the blogs listed below for how to have a safe environment for the ways in which we conduct these small group virtual youth rooms, in the same way that you would think through all the procedures and protocols for having a great small group at your church house. Think about these things as well. But this is an increasingly important option for students that are feeling stressed out. Every day they spend at home, not at school, and not going about the routine of life from a few weeks or months ago. The more important we need to have opportunities like this, not just weekly, but throughout the week. Discipleship. This is perhaps one of the best seasons of discipleship that a youth pastor could have ever asked for. We have students that are literally bored at home, hungry for more things than distractions. And I think creating a discipleship strategy for your ministry that helps free them from distractions and mobilizes them to learn and grow is really important. This is a chance maybe to form digital disciples in a whole new way. So instead of having an accessory program of trying to send up updates, texts, or encouragements, now we can build a whole philosophy and strategy about how we're going to disciple students throughout a week. Little things like creating daily challenges, offering reciprocal engagement of you put out something and have a chance to hear back from them is really important in this season. Also thinking about posts that don't just share what you're going to do and what you're scheduling, but a chance for them to reflect. What's a verse for them to learn? What's a question for you to ask? And what's a way for them to respond? This is really an exciting time to deepen some of those relationships. Again, there's a few more tools here that are helpful. Remind or some other text-based app to send up daily updates of a reading plan. Hey, read these verses. Here's some questions to go with it. The Marco Polo app that many of your students enjoy is a video voicemail service that groups can actually leave messages for each other. And then Flipgrid, another free tool where students can go onto a board that you create that's semi-public. It's protected by a password or a link that you have where they can share video responses to a discipleship-based question. Some of these tools they've already used at school. Some of these tools they're already familiar with. Not be new for you. Again, a new tool worth practicing, but it's a chance for your students to share back with you what they're learning, how they're feeling, and what they're going through in this season. Don't miss out on the joy of making disciples in this season. Community. I think a lot of times we take community for granted because if we're all in the same room, we're clearly a community. And I think for so many of us in youth ministry right now, we're going to have to rethink what it means to set boundaries and create opportunities for students to gather in a communal way. Do not forget to plan for fun. Fun, fun, fun. Don't forget the fun. I think sometimes we get the byproduct of all in the same room and we knew each other so it was fun, or we threw a game at the beginning or the end of our program time. This is a great opportunity to literally plan fun as part of your week, whether that's a Thursday night trivia night, a Tuesday morning TikTok challenge, or just getting together for a watch party on Netflix. There's so many fun opportunities to just hang out and be community together. So instead of having a 10-minute sprint of fun before we try to jam everything else into our 90-minute weekly program, we can now dedicate purposeful and meaningful time to have fun and encourage our students to bond and invite their friends. Share videos, memes, stories, play games, and host challenges. Connect with students on their turf. There are students that are already living a big chunk of their life online that will have tools and entry points to share and show you, whether that's playing video games on Twitch or gaming online or updating them their own personal vlogs or some of their favorite YouTubers to follow. There's great and meaningful connections that your youth ministry and you as a youth pastor can find fun as an avenue to connect with them and build up community for your youth ministry. Service. I think for a lot of us, we were rushing in the last few weeks just to figure out how to do what we were always doing. But I think this is a chance for us to be creative and flex those problem-solving muscles for how we're going to serve those around us that are in great need. I think a lot of students today are worried that they don't have anything to offer. They don't have anything of value. I mean, everything else is spinning out related to sickness and health and economics and jobs. What do they at age 14 and 15 have to offer? And the answer is a lot. There's some fresh opportunities. Have them FaceTime Grandma. They understand the technology and they know how much it means. Empower them and give them the courage to be the ones that would be encouraging other people. They should be the ones reaching out. They are native to these tools. They understand what it means to live and walk in a life of video phone calls and updates and using these kinds of social media mechanics to connect and build community. Encourage them to send e-cards to elderly members of your church congregation. You reach out and find the ways in the email list of folks to get a hold of and encourage them to use old school, for them, tools to connect with people that need to hear from them the most. And then share stories on your church page. I think one of the best audiences to cultivate sharing what's going on, how we're learning, how we're growing, how we're facing crisis is your student ministry population. They get it. They're not camera shy, and your church congregation would benefit greatly from hearing young people share scripture, share prayers, and updates of how they're facing and living life into this crisis scenario. Also, encourage healthcare workers. I am still daily overwhelmed by the number of people that are working around the clock to love and care for all of us through this crisis. Find ways to meaningfully connect either with your local hospital or those that are serving in your church community that are providing health care at almost all hours of the day. Leave cards on doorsteps. There's probably some safety things to investigate here for the ways in which things can be transmitted and transferred, but do the research and find out if you can leave some kind of care package, note, or just encouraging word or posted on the doors of some people in their neighborhood. Just because we're socially distanced doesn't mean that we have to be socially disconnected. Find a way for your students to spread love and encouragement in their neighborhood, apartment complex, or housing addition. And then finally, prayer walk their streets. Encourage your students to get outside a little bit. It's really easy to fall down the rabbit hole of just endless media consumption, distracting ourselves from whatever might be the problems and the weight that we're feeling that day. Encourage them to get outside, pray for their neighbors, get some fresh air, and absorb what God's good creation can do for our lives. And then finally, for you, we just wanted to share this. We're making free resources available to you, not just for your student ministry, but for you, the student minister or youth pastor. We want to offer soul care to you. So our team cares and believes in you. We want you to know you're not alone in this. We're sharing the notes of this presentation outside of our coaching community because we want everybody to have the right kind of reflection and encouragement for how to do ministry, but also that you are cared for in the doing and the work of ministry. Collaboration requires care. Thinking through all these things is taxing and and tiring. Some of the things that we've heard over the last week is that I have not been this tired in ministry in a long time, and we hear you. We want to offer the respite, the prayer and encouragement to keep moving forward, because this undoubtedly is wearing on you and your family. We cannot keep going at the pace that we were going, and so we are going to have to find ways before we break to pray and care for each other. That you as a minister also need ministry, and we want to be here and love and care for you. So you can see the link there below. We'd love for you to visit it, check in, and we will have an RSVP time for you because we care and believe in you. And we have even more stuff for you at studentministry.lifeway.com/hub. It's being updated daily with resources, insights, whatever is the latest thing that we know, we are sharing there with you. You can follow us on social media at Lifeway Students or at Youth Ministry Booster. We are a community that cares for those that love young people. So wherever you're serving, whatever number of students that you're caring for and their families, we would ask you in this time to be as pastoral and caring as possible, but also find the right roads, places, and pit stops for you to renew in the ways in which you're caring and leading. We're praying for you. We're caring for you. We're on your team in this.